call Tamarin. This is Stan Walenti.
Hello, Stan.
Stan's off duty today, so he took me to lunch.
Oh? Off duty from what? Good-looking boy, huh? Awful lot of solid connections out on the coast. Could do her a world of good.
What do you say, boys? If I go, it goes.
Hoffman, we got a deal.
Yeah. I take the chances and you get the money.
If you'll excuse me, I've got my duties to attend to. When you've settled in, we can complete our briefing. Have security arrange an escort for this gentleman.
Aye, sir.
Your father and I are just catching up.
You never told me you knew him.
You ladies getting all you need?
Fred, it is everything I ever imagined.
Jessica, Cynthia, mind if I borrow the hostess?
Excuse the mysterioso ladies.
I want you to come home with me.
You turn any drywood at all in them wagons?
I don't think so, but I'll take another look.
Come on. Ah. There we go.
Oh, knock it off. The children are right. We're a bunch of babies. I'm surprised they didn't hightail it out of here years ago.
Are you saying that we've acted unreasonably?
We have. And they have.
Well, certainly not on a par.
I don't think there's a clear winner, but hang on to your ticket, Kitty. Now, the children love each other, and it looks like we're going to know each other for the rest of our lives, so let's just figure out how to get along. We've been carrying stuff around for years. Let's get it out in the open.
Ooh.
All right, I'll go first. Finkelstein, what the hell is the deal with that ponytail?
Hello, everyone. Let me hit a button here. Hi, folks. How you doing? Great to see you. I had to add that ponytail thing in the beginning because my do is a little long, so I was just waiting for Mitch to say, Todd, what is up with that ponytail? But I hope you all are well. It's very exciting. I'm thrilled to have Mitch Ryan with us tonight. And before we get started, I just want to do a little tiny bit of housekeeping. One is, thank you guys for being here again, as always. We have a show in 2 weeks, which will be our last one for 2021. And that one is by Tom Baum. It's Sperm, and it's called Sperm by Tom Baum, and it's directed by Mitch Levine. And that's in 2 weeks. Everybody will get a notice, so I hope you guys can attend and be here in 2 weeks. And then who knows what 2022 will bring. I hope it brings everybody lots of good health and happiness and prosperity and all this chaos that we've been living with over the last almost 2 years, year and a half, goes away. Smartphone theater will live forever. But in the meantime, let's get to Mitch, who is our man of the next hour or two. We plan on going for an hour. We may go longer. It all depends. The way this is going to work is roughly every 15 minutes, I'm going to stop and ask for questions. We'll do a few questions and we'll start again and see how that format works. And I'm sure it will be great. So if you have any questions, you have a little hand button somewhere on your screen. Just raise your hand and I'll activate your mic, and then we'll talk and you can ask questions, and then we will get going. All right. So enough of me. I want to introduce Mitch Ryan, who has an enormously amazing career, a very long career, and both stage and screen, Broadway, Hollywood, TV, films. And you just saw I added, what, 5 or 6 clips. I think Mitch has 70 films. He'll tell us in a second, but I think there's 70 films in TV, not including series, his own series, and Broadway shows and so forth. So what that was just a tiny smattering. There's just an enormous amount. But without further ado, I want to introduce Mitch Ryan. So Mitch, come on. There you go. Hello, Mitch. You have to unmute. You do have to unmute. So hit that left button. There we go.
I always do that. I'm always mute. That's hardly the truth.
I was going to say. I was going to say.
Valuable fellow.
I was going to say that's impossible.
Well, Todd, it's great to be here and good to see you.
And good to see you too. And thank you for this. This is quite an honor. I'm thrilled. I'm absolutely thrilled.
Well, I'm happy to be here. I greet the audience. I know probably most of them, and I hope we can have a conversation about things.
Absolutely.
That have gone through my life. I also wrote it all down, and it's been published, which is kind of a miraculous thing, but it's a nice book. I like it, and I think you would enjoy it too. It's interesting.
Great.
It not only goes through the career, it goes through my incredible relationship with my son, which was a tragic ending, and so I tried to find some forgiveness in that, some kind of resolution by writing the book. And I think I did for myself.
Good. The book is called Fall of a Sparrow, and it's really a wonderful read. So I can't recommend it enough to everyone. It is Mitch is being modest, and it is a really, really wonderful read, both from just if you have nothing to do with the arts, it's fantastic. If you do have something to do with the arts, it means that much more. Just your experience from stage and screen, and obviously your personal life with your family. Very candid, very raw, and so well written. You, in the book, you reveal that your mom was a writer. Do you think that's where
Well,
what influence was that?
At the time, I didn't have any feeling for that, but because she would go to her room and write, and as writers do, and every now and then we would be invited in, which was kind of great. And she would read us Tom Sawyer or Huckleberry Finn or something else, Life on the Mississippi. She loved Dickens also. She would read some Dickens to us. And but she was very remote. Mm-hmm. So it was a difficult situation. I was quite happy to get out of there at 17 to go into the Navy, which turned out to be a terrible mistake.
Well, before we jump into the Navy world, I'm curious about in the relationship with your family. Even though there was an estrangement, you do talk about that Shakespeare is brought up a number of times, and that your father used to recite Shakespeare, or your parents would recite Shakespeare back and forth to each other. I'm just curious if you think there's some remote spot in your brain somewhere where it may have influenced you, or lit a fire.
I think it definitely influenced me, mm-hmm. Because she would read Shakespeare from time to time out loud, along with something else. And she quoted Shakespeare quite often. Mm-hmm. And when I found out later, after I got out of the Navy and got into the amateur theater there, that she knew Hamlet almost by heart. And she quoted it to me when she found out that I was going to be in Hamlet, the production of Hamlet, and all of a sudden she comes out with these extraordinary lines of Hamlet's, and I remember thinking at the time that, my God, what a connection! My mother knows Hamlet by heart. My father knows the comedies from the tragedies, and after thinking about it later, talking to various smart people,
Right.
it is quite obvious that I got a lot from that, a lot of impetus, a lot of substance, and because I love Shakespeare, and I was in the Shakespeare Festival in New York, in that beautiful Central Park Theater for 4 years, I think.
Right. When you went from experience of a child really to the moment where you're suddenly doing the Shakespeare, you're in the Shakespeare Festival, when you're doing Shakespeare on stage, and you're actually bringing Shakespeare to life, or maybe even before that, do you remember the first time you saw Shakespeare performed on stage?
Yes, it was Maurice Evans doing Hamlet, and I don't remember much about it except I couldn't follow it completely, and the duel went on forever, and that was great. And I was in high school, or like the junior, sophomore, or something.
When is it that when Shakespeare, I don't have a Shakespeare background whatsoever, so when Shakespeare takes its own life, because you just said I didn't understand it, so suddenly you do understand it. Suddenly it becomes.
Well, I don't know whether it was him, his way of doing it, or my lack of understanding the syntax of the thing. But it's pretty easily understood when you read it. It's extraordinary, and I remember when first year I was in the Shakespeare Festival, I'd come from Summerstock and the Barter Theater, which everybody probably knows about, and down in Virginia, and I'd done plays down there. And I got into the actor studio. I was really excited about that. So I did some Shakespeare for Lee Strasberg. And he said, Mitch, you have to learn how to act before you can do Shakespeare. And so I was, of course, offended. And he said, don't get offended. Don't get upset. You're a very talented kid, so we'll work on it. And we did. And he taught me the method. He taught me how to act. He taught me everything I learned and could put into practice. The great, extraordinary Stanislavski method, which saves every show in America's tail.
I want to build on what you just said, which is when Lee said, you're very talented. In your book, that happens frequently, and you question it. You question talent a lot. It's you, especially in the beginning. You question I don't know if it's doubt or confidence, or because you are told that you are. I'm not spoiling the book. You're told over and over again by producers and agents and friends, you're a lucky son of a bitch. You're a lucky son of a bitch. You go for an audition, you get the role. You do this, you get the role.
Well, there's a long, shady background in that.
Yes. We're here for an hour.
I think aside from the incredible neurotic, egocentric person that I was in those days, I had to have some kind of mask, some kind of act to get out of this. I don't want this responsibility. And this I, of course, found out much later. I had no idea what was going on, but that I think was part of what was going on. Is that, oh, don't talk about that. I was so sure it was a great play, the hell with it, things like that, that just minimized everything I was doing in order to escape and to hide out, And then, of course, I found drink, and drink reinforced that completely, and especially the way I drank. And so it was a fairly short drinking period. It was only about 15 years, 16 years, but it by the time I was done, I was almost dead. And I'd been fired out of movies, and so obviously I wanted out of it.
Right.
Completely.
Right.
So, but I quit.
That's great.
I finally had enough, and for some reason I quit, and then I didn't work for a year, and then this is, I'm about 37 or 8. And then Walter Bacall, a great member of the Actors Studio. You remember Walter? Scott,
I don't know Walter.
Yeah, he was a director, wonderful director, and he directed me in a couple of things, and he also resurrected and went around and talked to everybody about me, all the producers and to get that I was sober and that I needed a job. And so he actually got me going again, which was an extraordinary thing. And I found out that people are a pretty good lot.
Yeah, that's good. There's something that I recognize throughout your story, and that is there's a certain sense of community that I think what I'm gathering from what's coming off the page is that you enjoy, that there's a part of, because when you're talking about theater, I actually mean to know you call it the theatrical tradition, and you say it in a way that theater, that there's the community of theater that you really enjoy. And then even in your drinking days, there was times when I gathered that you enjoyed having your friends and your drinking buddies and
it was the only thing that I had that made me feel like I was alive was being on the stage.
Yes.
Or in a bar. I had in a bar, there's a certain life, a certain thing, and on the stage, there's this extraordinary life. And I was only in those two places. I had no other life whatsoever, and that was enough for me until the drink took too great a toll.
Right. How about is that camaraderie? Go ahead. Sorry. I was just going to ask, does that camaraderie exist in film and TV as well?
Not as much. There's a much more intimate connection in a play because you're all together for a month or 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks before you open. And then when you open, you're together. So in a film, you do a scene 2 minutes and you're not called for 3 days, and you're not together very well. I mean, it's it's a great medium, and it's hard to put it down because it's given me a great living and
Sure.
and there are movies, several that I've done out of 65 or so that are kind of good.
I would say at least. Let me see here. I'm going to use that as a little bit of a segue, since you just said that. If anybody has a question, just raise your hand. But I'm going to use it. Oh, wait a minute. We have Scott. So Scott, I'm going to jump to you. So you just have to unmute yourself. Scott?
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes. Yeah, sure can. Go for it.
Hey, thanks a lot. This is great to see you, sirs. I just have a question for Mr. Ryan.
Of course.
Did you have I gather that you like doing stage the best, but if you could pick a role you played on film or television, what would be your favorite?
Well, the stage is an extraordinary experience. And I did it for 15 years straight. I was on the stage every night for 15 years. And it's fantastic. But you can't make a living on the stage. You can't raise children. People do, and it's a struggle. So you have to either do commercials or go do the movies. So by chance, I was on the road with Moon for the Misbegotten with Salome Jens, my dear Salome, and I got picked for a movie when we were playing in Hollywood. She got very mad, but that's okay. And so I went to do the movies, and then I got hooked into the money a little bit, and it was great. I was I was using the fantasy in my head at that time, which was really extraordinary, that I used to say it this way: I will only do the great plays, and I will do nothing else. So somebody offered me a contemporary play, a nice play, and some money. Well, I'll do that. I'll do plays only. Then somebody gave me a television show. I said, well, all right, I'll just do plays and television shows. Then movies. All right, I'll just do those. But I will never, ever, 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 ever do a soap opera or a sitcom. And immediately I got offered a soap opera. Then I made Dharma Greg.
Which is terrific. All right, Scott, thank you so much.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
How do you pronounce your last name?
Oh, wait a minute. I just ended it. I have, before we cut to something, keep on referring. Sure, Gesundheit. I'm going to refer to, again, and I've been reading Fall of a Sparrow, so I'm going to keep on referring back to it. There is, Rick, don't go away. I'm going to get to you. There's
sorry.
That's okay. You talk about, and we talked a little bit of this earlier, as far as talent, but I also want to talk about artists. You know what? In the beginning, you were really questioning what an artist is and being an artist, and then you identified yourself with an artist. I'm very curious on that transition, when you bought into that, when you said, "This is it. This is who I am."
Well, I don't think I used the word.
You say no, but you do talk about the arts and artists.
Yeah.
There's a lot of doubt of being an artist.
There's a lot of doubt. There was great amounts of doubt, and slowly I got confidence in playing these big parts, and everybody helped.
Right.
Salome Jens, who was playing the glorious part in Moon for the Misbegotten, has always been an incredible help because she was in the Shakespeare Festival in a couple of plays, and she's always been there and always seen what can be done.
Sure.
And she also has extraordinary control of her technique. And other actors, Sandra Seacat is I remember doing Uncle Vanya and watching her and trying to understand what she's doing and how simple it is and how direct. And then on the other coin, watching George C. Scott blast an audience out of the building. And he was incredible. I mean, there was, you may disagree with what he's doing, but the commitment was so extraordinary.
Right.
You got to call him an artist, an actor. I mean,
you know,
so those kind of things were really helpful. Jason Robards, Christopher Plummer, all these people, you know, Joe Van Fleet. I mean, they're all these extraordinary actors.
I've been going through your, you know, I've been watching your films and or at least going through clips, and I see that you have, there's an enormous amount of concentration that you bring to the, obviously to the camera. There's a focus, there's just an extreme focus. And even in your early pieces, especially your early black and white pieces. So I'm very curious on when you meet Lee and he says, let me teach you. What was going through your mind? Like, wait a minute, I've already been working. I've been on the stage. I've been.
Well, that's when he said, calm down, son. You know,
right.
Because I did react to that. I said, wait a minute, I've done 20 plays. What the hell are you talking about?
Right.
TV shows. But I mean, you know, you can go your whole life just blathering through and using your personality, and which I'm not above, but there's such inner work and such. I mean, just the simple thing of like when he said to me, "What do you want in this scene?" Well, I said, nobody ever asked me that before. I don't know what I want. What do I want? He said, well, you have to know what you want when you come on stage. And so that, just that simple thing is enough to change a chord of a play, you know, a part.
Rick Sandek, you are up.
Hey, Mitch. Hi, Mitch. I wanted to know if you became a better actor in sobriety.
Not right away. I think eventually, of course. And right away, I was a little tentative because although I didn't, I wasn't drunk all the time doing plays, but sometimes I was, and it wasn't very good at all. But the drinking did infect the acting and give it a kind of freedom that was that had no basis in. It may not even be near the play even half the time, you know. And later, when I was sober, it was really difficult to bring back what Lee had given me and try to work with it and try to be simple and direct and find out what is needed in the play. And I did finally figure it out. And I didn't do too many plays. I did Medea in New York with Zoe Caldwell and Judith Anderson later. And I did The Price, a revival of The Price on Broadway, which was a great experience. Arthur Miller was at every rehearsal, which was good and bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know whether that answers your question, Rick, or not.
I'm curious if you would just go into the good and bad about having Arthur Miller at your rehearsal.
Oh, well, he, just as an instance, he took Fritz Weaver and I to lunch about the third day of rehearsal, fourth day, to that place that's upstairs. What's it called? On 45th Street, the Marvelous Steakhouse. Anybody from New York?
I don't know New York well enough.
Yeah. Anyway, it's above the theater bar. And anyway, he and Fritz started talking about what the play was about the grand thing that nobody is willing to pay the price. And they get into all the psychological things about it. And I, in this early part of the rehearsal, did not want to hear any of that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I wanted to find my own way and then get directed, I mean, I played a dumb cop, the marvelous part, and who's stayed there the whole time and took care of the father while the other guy went away. And I was carrying that resentment, but the that kind of stuff he would unfold for thinking it was helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually wasn't particularly helpful to me. It was helpful to Fritz, obviously, and to the rest of the people. But
what's your way of working on stage? And what I mean by that is that, and I would imagine that changed through time, but because some people have different approaches. So when what would be like your ideal situation when you started rehearsal, and what would be the worst situation when you started rehearsal?
Well, the director has an awful lot to do with that.
Mm-hmm.
Like Arthur Penn directed me and Lee Remick in a play in New York, and Bobby Duvall, and his greatest note was, "That won't do, Mitch." So you got the point, and you knew that you had to do a little more study and work.
Right.
And that kind of direction, keep hands off, hands-on directing just becomes very difficult to deal with. I mean, you can deal with it, but it's harder.
Mm-hmm. Were there instances where because ultimately you have to adjust for your cast from a director standpoint, you have to adjust for your cast.
Oh yeah.
Is there an instance where you were working with cast members who wanted hands-on and you just preferred the opposite direction?
Well, the Price was one, because they at every they would, the director John Sticks.
Don't know. Maybe
He's in the
Hicks.
studio.
I think it's Hicks.
John Hicks.
Yeah.
Anyway, he somebody correct me if you know, and he would give us his notes, and then Arthur would give his notes, and I had to sort of wait through all the stuff that, and it was okay. Some of it was because Jack Garfien was producing, and finally he said, "Mitch, shut up and do your job. For Christ's sake, stop bitching to me, because remember, Arthur Miller may know a little more about the theater than you do." So that sort of ended that gripe.
And then you go into film, and there was one of the films that you did early on. I remember in your book, the director came to you and he said, "I'm a cameraman and I'm directing this piece."
Yeah.
So suddenly you're working with directors who probably don't know how to speak to actors, I'm imagining.
No, he didn't at all know how, but Lee Marvin did.
Mm-hmm.
He was in the movie, and he was a great help. And we talked about the West in 1890 when it was falling apart, and all this stuff, and and it was great. Of course, westerns are very easy, really, because all you have to do is put the hat on and the gun and hang on the horse and look out over the great Arizona desert. You don't have to do anything else.
And tobacco.
And say, yep, I'm here.
We have Lisa Richards. So
Lisa Richards.
Lisa, unmute yourself and you're on.
Well, now I have a couple of questions because in the price, I mean, I know that dinner with Arthur and Fritz Weaver, but it seems to me, I don't even know how you went back and kept doing what you really wanted to explore. Did John Styx help you do you say, well, I just want to try this, Arthur, this is not what I'm going to do at the end or something?
Well, no, they were pretty good about what I was doing, I think, because they didn't interrupt me, although I did get some peculiar notes from John, but they, you know what you do with peculiar notes. And it worked out fine. I mean, you know,
yeah.
Abe Vigoda, no, not Abe Vigoda. God, I forget who played the old guy. He was great. He was fabulous, and he and I had a couple of long scenes, which was really wonderful. That nobody ever messed with because everybody was afraid of him.
And I have another.
Go for it.
Oh yeah, go ahead. So you say there, I mean, an unexamined life is not worthwhile. That's a theme in one of the chapters. And I was wondering, in the plays that you were doing, every play that one does in a way permits you to explore a part of yourself, of your own life in greater depth.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt that in the chapter on the moon for Misbegotten was just such a beautiful chapter because you explored your relationship with your mother in a very deep way. Yeah. So.
Well, thank you. That's something that always, first of all, the material has to be there, and the idea that Salome was right there too.
Yeah.
And it gives you a whole, you know, it just shows you what great depth can be found if you're working with somebody who's looking for it too.
Yeah.
And you're willing, you know, you have to be willing and
so Lisa,
drop your ego and
I want to build on that. Mitch, what?
Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks, you're welcome.
Okay. I want to build on that. And that, is there a role in particular, or was there a time where you became more raw in your performances, when you were really digging deep, when you were, was you're from a performance standpoint, it's interesting because I look at your talent really, and this is from your very early films, and I'm like, oh my God, you know, like I see it, I absolutely see it, and I'm curious if there is a point in your professional career where suddenly, obviously you met Lee, but was there a point in your career where suddenly it became so raw and so true for you? That became sort of monumental. It became a bookmark in your life.
Well, I worked for another director, Michael Murray. He had the theater in Boston for several, a decade maybe. And I did Death of a Salesman up there. I played Biff with Herb Voland, who was a good old character actor. And you can't play Biff and think of anything but your father. So you get really deeply involved. And then that extraordinary scene at the end where he says, "I'm nothing, Pop, I'm nothing." And he goes berserk almost. And that was a breaking point, an opening point. And oddly enough, the next play I did up there was about 3 months later, after we closed The Salesman, was The Great God Brown. And I don't know whether anybody knows that play well, but it's an extraordinary play. Maybe it's, I think, one of the best plays O'Neill ever wrote. And the guy, Dion Anthony, goes crazy too. I mean, they're really upset at one point. And so those both followed upon one another.
Right.
Sort of changed my attitude toward toward parts. And I mean, and oddly enough, in Othello with James Earl, Iago, of course, is maybe one of the greatest parts ever written, but he never loses it. He's always there. He's always scheming and running and talking and acting and running the show and pulling the pins. And then also in Iphigenia I did with Irene Papas, it's the same thing. The king is above it. I sacrificed our daughter because I had to. And she goes nuts. Boy, that was something. And then came Moon, in which I really had to let it go there. I had to find it and to let it go.
What do you demand of your Bruce? I'm going to get to you in 1 second. Mitch? What do you ask of your co-stars, or what do you demand from your co-stars at this point?
Well, if they're men, is one thing. If they're women, it's another thing. I don't know. It's all.
Yes.
I don't demand anything really. I mean, I don't think. Maybe I do. But.
Is there anything that rubs you the wrong way if you're on set or on stage? That someone does or?
Not particularly. Yeah, I could get irritated at some dumb thing, but I don't hold grudges, or it doesn't bother me that much, and usually it's something that's very forgivable, and people don't. Sometimes they do in stock. You know, I remember that people do funny things. Kind of jokes and stuff.
Right. Okay. All right. Bruce, it's all you. How are you? Welcome back to
Good.
New York.
It's great to see you. Mitch, we've met a couple times at Assad's house, but one of the things I just wanted to comment about here was I saw the price in a matinee performance. I was friends with Jack Garfien. I studied with him.
Oh, yeah.
I went to a matinee, and I saw one of the most extraordinary moments in anything I'd ever seen in the history of theater for me, which was, it was a Hadassah lady, filled out, the bulk of it, the buses brought him in. And when Fritz Weaver, Joseph Bulloff was the salesman, but the buyer.
Bulloff,
yeah, he was the buyer of the furniture. But when Fritz Weaver is bullying you, about his role with your father and calling you the audience started screaming at you. You probably remember this. It was the most astounding thing I'd ever seen, where you have all these old Jewish ladies, and I'm Jewish, yelling at you, don't take that from your brother. Don't listen to him. Fight back. It was like, it was the deepest response I'd ever seen in the theater. It was extraordinary.
It was.
Yeah.
They were en masse, uninhibited. I mean, they just jumped in. You're not going to pick on this boy. Yeah.
Yeah. But it was a performance of a lifetime. That
shocked Fritz too.
Yeah. Was that every night that happened?
No, there was
Just
a reaction. There was a sort of a reaction every night, but nothing like that.
Yeah. That was a common matinee reaction, or was it just what I saw that one day?
No, it was just, I think that one time that was so valuable because there were a lot of Jewish women and people in the audience who were protecting their sons.
Yeah, it was just an amazing performance.
Yeah. How is Jack? Have you seen him?
He's underground,
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah, so I haven't seen him because of that,
Yeah. Well, I tell him, if you see him, tell him to call me.
Well, we'll all be able to see him at some day, but let's put that off, okay?
All right. Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce.
I want to jump into TV a bit. That you've done a lot of series. The fact that when you do a series that has, you're on many seasons, does that start to duplicate the theater experience? That you're in theater, you're going on the road, doing a road show, multiple shows for however many months, and now suddenly you're doing a series. Does that have a similar feeling or not so much?
No, I don't think so. Depending on the writers, and these series, they hire like 12, 15 writers. I mean, it's unbelievable,
right,
to go to a writer session. And but no, not necessarily. It all depends on the level of the talent of the people that have been hired. And several of them, there was one I did that was at MGM, about Executive Suite, it was called. And it was an extraordinary play. I mean, each hour was a marvelous play because the several writers were so good. It was based on the movie that Bill Holden did.
Sure.
And had a great cast. And each show went beautifully. And there were only 3 television rated networks in those days: ABC, NBC, and CBS. And we were third. And we were third because the others were, something unbelievable. And we got a 24 rating, which is the highest one last week was 14. The highest one. So we got canceled because we were third. But there was, there's no similarity to doing a play over and over, although this was close to something that might be considered that, because you were always happy at the script reading, near always.
Right.
Because there was another marvelous hour play to do,
Right. Right. How did your you were offered series where you were the lead of the series? How did they come about? There was I actually used a clip. It was I think it was a police drama.
Oh no, it was Flying Around in the Sky. What's that called?
Yes, yeah, Chase. Chase.
No. Bill Shatner.
Oh, Star Trek.
Star Trek, yes.
Yes.
And I played the lead's father.
Yes. Great outfit, by the way.
Yeah, it was. That's my long johns with a collar.
Oh, that I did that episode. I worked with a guy years ago who was a writer on Next Generation, and there's such a fan base, such an amazing fan base.
Oh God, unbelievable! Yeah.
Yes.
No, I for some reason got fired off of that because of not fired, but because they never said they were going to hire me, but they hired somebody else to kind of a running part as the father. I guess they didn't like me, or they didn't fit, or whatever. I didn't care in one way or another. But
Next Generation was I know a bunch of people actually from the studio that were actually hired on Next Generation.
Oh yeah,
yeah, it's very
a lot of people liked it.
And Star Trek itself, and the original Star Trek.
Oh yeah.
You know what? It's I said I was gonna do it every 15 minutes, but I'm gonna just run one clip, just one clip.
Okay.
And, just because I feel like it, and I spent all this time doing it. So let's run one clip. Give us all a second, and then we'll jump back. Okay.
Okay.
So here we go.
Mr. Newberry, it's Martin Blank. Good evening.
Oh.
How are you?
Good evening, Mr. Blank.
Sir?
You've beaten the millennia. I lose my bet.
Yeah, it was completely unavoidable, sir. So, just wanted to say hello and, ask you how you are.
Martin.
How's business, tricks?
I don't know where you've been since you abandoned my daughter 10 years ago, and I don't care. It's good that you left. I'm glad that you did. You've grown up a bit. Did I have you figured wrong?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I hope so.
I visualized you in a haze as one of those slackster, flannel-wearing, coffee house misanthropes I've been seeing in Newsweek.
No. I went the other road. 6 figures, doing business with lead pipe cruelty, mercenary sensibility, sports, sex, no real relationships with anybody. How about you? How have the years been treating you?
Well, you know me, Martin, the same old sellout, exploiting the oppressed.
Sure.
Ah, what a piece of work is man. How noble. Oh, fuck it. Let's have a drink and forget the whole damn thing.
I'd love to, but we're a little bit late, so I just wanted to say hello and, wish you the best.
What have you been doing with your life?
Professional killer.
Oh, good for you. It's a growth industry.
That's great. Do you gravitate towards I love that. I mean that movie was many of your films become like classics. I mean the ones that I pulled out were Grosse Pointe Blank and Lethal Weapon and Liar Liar. These are all just huge mainstays that are just as they hold their worth. They just don't go away.
First one I did in 1957 with Robert Mitchum, Thunder Road, is a classic too. It played all the drive-ins for 25 years. And the drive-ins went out, and then they came. Now they're coming back. So.
Yeah, they are coming back. I watched it. I loved it.
Yeah.
I think I think YouTube is going to give Netflix a run for its money. I'm going to start watching all the classics.
Oh yeah, YouTube.
Yes, yeah. Many of them can be found on YouTube. So Lisa Richards wants to know if you could actually read a passage from your book.
Oh.
Would you be interested in doing that?
Sure.
Nearby. Okay, let me ask you, while you're doing that, do you gravitate towards comedy or drama, or it doesn't matter?
It doesn't matter. It's great to play comedy because it's a lot of fun, but to turn on the drama is also fun.
Great.
Well, I wonder what I'll read. I want to read something.
Yeah. Sorry to spring it on you last minute.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
How much do you want? Or
You could do a page. How about a nice page?
well,
Or something meaty.
starting to jump in.
Yes.
What do you want to hear, Lisa?
Lisa, you could type it in or put it into the chat. So if you put it into the chat. All right. So while she's doing that, I'm just gonna ask you another question.
Go ahead.
All right. All right. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. I have someone. Susan.
Yeah, I'll tell you what to read, Mitch. You know, it's me, Susan Sullivan.
Oh God, Susan.
Section about your
You
mother.
showed up just in time.
Read the section about your mother. It's really quite extraordinary.
Oh, all right.
Also, tell all these actors and directors that you don't listen to your director. You don't. No. You listen. You just never contradict them. You always agree with them.
Yes.
That's what you told me.
Yes.
Is that true?
That's what the first teacher I ever had in Louisville said. The wisest thing you can know about the theater, Mitch, is never argue with the director.
Ah, that's more to the point.
Yes.
You see, you're very impressive, Mitch, because I know how old you are, and your brain is just fabulous. Plus, you remember stuff. It's mind-boggling. Okay, I'm out. Goodbye.
Hi, Susan. Bye.
Susan.
Hi, Todd. Bye, Todd.
So if you never argue with your director, does that mean that you do everything the director asks?
No. I just don't argue with them about something I disagree with, because I've seen it just totally destroy the set for the day if somebody gets on a buzz. Let me find out where this is.
You deal with your mother.
Chapter 10, I think.
Okay, and I read today chapter 21, I believe, which is when she comes to California. So I have it here as well. Let me see.
No. Oh, this is ridiculous.
Yes, chapter 21 is when she comes to California.
Yeah, that we don't want that. But
okay.
She wants the one about Shakespeare, I think.
No, I don't. And Todd is absolutely right. It's chapter 21, when she comes.
Okay, 21.
21.
Thank you, Todd.
You're welcome.
Todd, you're damn good. Goodbye.
Oh, my Lord. Thank you. So that is my...
Right.
You got it?
I got it.
Okay, go for it. I'm going to turn off my camera so you have the whole screen.
Mitch was perched between packing boxes on the faded blue sofa when he caught his mother staring at him. He knew why, and he didn't care. His vision blurred the clock on the mantel into a Madonna. It stood tall in the dark room, brown frame, like hair surrounding a large white face. He couldn't make out the numbers, but remembered this clock from when he was a boy living with his mother and father on Ingle Avenue in Louisville, Kentucky, 100 years ago. Breathing thick and needing a drink, he looked down at his gray hands, trying to still them as if they belonged to someone else, and half listened to his mother droning on. Well, at least there's a mantel, she said. I'm not sure about this neighborhood. The kitchen is too small. Is your kitchen the same, Mr. Klein? Elderly Mr. Klein, a Jewish man who lived in the building, had been helping her move in for several days. Yes, much the same. I like that there's plenty of windows, good light. There's nothing wrong with the plumbing, no leaks in the roof. What are you talking about, Mother? Oh, nothing, dear. You just sit there and rest. You've had a hard night, I can see. She stood across from the sofa, leaning against the mantel. She wore a baggy black sweater over a white shirt. My son is an actor, Mr. Klein, an artist. Acting is an art, isn't it? Maybe it's the highest form of art, he tells me. You have to suffer for your art. Isn't that so, Mitchell? You should know, Mother. Genevieve observed herself in the wall mirror. God, I look a mess. She turned and waited to be contradicted. No one said anything. Mitch remembered his mother as a handsome woman, but years of pain of the soul and the body had left her with a sharp tongue and a bitter, closed face. Decades of carbohydrates had left her fat. Well, anyway, here I am, for better or worse, Mr. Klein, in Santa fucking Monica. Yes, Mr. Klein waved his arms around. It's a lovely apartment, Genevieve. He sat on a straight chair in the archway between the kitchen and the generous living room. May I call you Genevieve? His thick glasses made his eyes look enormous. Mrs. Ryan will do, until I get to know you better, Mr. Klein. She sighed with a sad smile. What a place to end up. I'm so tired. She kicked at Mitch's foot as she went back to the packing boxes. My son brought me here against my will, all the way from Louisville, Kentucky. Had a horrible drive. Took longer than the first settlers. I won't fly, you understand. Much too dangerous. Ma, that's not entirely the truth. How much longer will this life go on, do you think, Mr. Klein? Much longer than we have a right to expect. Her son leaned forward and has put his face in his hands. That sounds familiar, dear. What play is it from? Well, you're the dramatic one. Mitch could see that Mr. Klein, bewildered by this exchange, and had been rendered mute. I think of things like that now. Dying. Do you think about dying, Mr. Klein? Mr. Klein caught Mitch's eye and nodded toward the woman, hoping Mitch would jump in and say something. But he, her son, never knew how to be with his mother. Staying above water was the best he could do. He was damn sorry he'd come here today. Trying not to drink on the drive across the country had been excruciating, even though he carried a bottle in the trunk for emergencies. In Los Angeles, he'd been met by the news that Linda had gone back to Tucson, suffered a breakdown. He assumed it had been brought on by his drinking and taken Tim with her. Mitch tried to call, but she wouldn't answer. His agent had left him a scathing message, and on top of all this, he now had no money and no job. So he methodically made up for lost time by drinking day and night. His breathing was coming in slow gasps, but he was able to remember the bar across the street. What sort of work do you do, Mrs. Ryan? Mr. Klein didn't like the way his son was limping toward the door. I write. Are you leaving, Mitchell, so soon? I really should get going. An artistic family. What is it you write, Mr. Klein? Mr. Klein's voice tried to keep the son in the room. Well, if you must know, I'm working on a journal of the endless trip I made from Kentucky. My son, Mitchell, came to the rescue in a truck, a big orange truck. Isn't that right, Mitchell? At the door, slipping out quickly, Mitch paused. I didn't know you were writing a journal, Mother. That should be a hell of a story. Genevieve held back and turned on the boxes. I must get packed. You're a good boy. to do this for your mother, Mr. Klein jumped in. She gave him a withering look. Do you have any children, Mr. Klein? I have a daughter in San Francisco. My son was killed in Vietnam. You said you never cared for people, but your boy cares for you. It's not good to be alone. Looks like he wants to be near you. What tripe, Mr. Klein? Mother, Mitch still stuck at the door. What? Oh, nothing. He turned his back on the room, still glued to the door. He wanted to defend the poor man, but it was too late. Mr. Klein, she savored her words. You have been very kind to help me this week and to move in. I appreciate your thoughtfulness. But please don't give me advice. And if you will excuse me, I'm very tired.
Good, Mitch. I'm going to jump in right there.
That's enough.
That was wonderful. And my question, when did you, is this the first time that the first book that you've written?
Yeah.
When did you realize that you could write? Because I mentioned this to somebody else, and it's not, there are a lot of people that write autobiographies. But there's a couple of things that I find fascinating about this. One is Mitch Ryan is a character in this, as opposed to, you never say I. So that's fascinating. The other thing is that this is written enormously well. And there are a lot of people from the arts, from all sorts, who write their autobiography, or they write a book, and you go, yes, you're an actor who's just written a book. But your writing is amazing. It's really wonderful.
Well, thank you very much. And it's interesting that I've been for 10 years with writers, and I started writing the book about 7 years ago. And before that, I was writing sketches and things, and both of these people, Claudette Sutherland, which people may know, and Donald Freed, which people may know, I studied with. Claudette first, and then Donald Freed.
Mm-hmm.
And they taught me. I mean, Donald was extraordinarily helpful.
Mm.
And he would always say, you might try this, or maybe you should go down this alley. And we would sit for long hours talking about, I don't want a book about, I did this, and then I did that, and then I did this.
Right.
I want a book about, mainly about the life of an actor who's really in trouble and somehow survives. And then it's too late for him and his son.
It's exactly what it is.
And it becomes that way a kind of a tragedy situation, although it ends up with Mitch in New York in front of the Booth Theater, thinking of Edwin Booth and the great tradition of theater. So,
have you ever considered? Did you ever sit down to write a screenplay, or that doesn't?
No, that doesn't appeal to me. Assad Kalata wants to dance.
Yes, he does. Assad is on. Susan, I haven't turned off your mic, by the way, just in case you wanted to chime in. So, Assad, you're on.
Hello, Mitch, and hello, Todd.
Hello, Assad.
Hello, Assad.
Wonderful to see you. I just want to tell you, I am savoring your book. I am reading it and relishing the experience, and just want to thank you for sharing yourself. There is an extraordinary amount of courage and the honesty of the book, and the thing that is most meaningful to me is that I keep getting to know you deeper and deeper as I read it, and it is a remarkable experience. And you had said something earlier that about Mitch, the character, of just trying to hide, and that was an operative goal for much of your life. And yet the thing that struck me in the book is that while that may be going on, the thing that never stopped was the passion to go back in, the passion to be in your life, the passion to somehow understand and be a part of your life. And to me, that was, it's an extraordinary duality going on, and it is a testimonial to the complexity and the richness of who you are, and the fact that you're sharing it with us is something. It's a privilege. And I just have one question that may or may not be answerable, which is, now that the book is written and you have it and you can hold it in your hand, and you've gone through the process of putting it all down, what does it feel like now? Did the book teach you anything? Do you know anything more now that you've written it than you did before starting it?
Great question.
Well, I think one of the aside from the glory of learning how to write and to allow the inner world to come through the hand to the page, which is a great thing, and to find out that I love poetry and I love good writing and I see what it is, which is a lot. What I've learned is I'm still learning. I want to learn how to love more, deeper, and really give of myself. I don't feel the connection as deeply as it can be felt with everyone. That's very vague, but
Thank you, and thank you again for the gift of you. It's been my honor to be a friend, to call you mine. Thank you.
Thank you, Assad. That was a wonderful question.
The one thing I wanted to say,
please,
about the character Mitch is that when I started, I started writing in the first person, and I realized in the first person, you just have to describe the behavior of who else is in the book with you or in the play. If you write yourself as a character, everybody gets to be a character and gets to express themselves in their inner feelings, in their inner life, the same. So it makes it a much more complex and much more interesting way to tackle the situation.
Sure.
More objective, which I wasn't always successful with, but at least it was a good attempt.
I'm going to build on just one thing that Assad brought up, and then we'll wrap it up shortly. So I know we've gone a little bit over, so we'll wrap up. And if anybody else has any final words, just raise your hand. So, and I'm going to talk about you, I guess, in the third person at the moment. So the character of Mitch in the book, and you especially in the beginning, there's doubt. There's sort of a lack of confidence, and he self-sabotages to a degree. But as Assad mentioned, you always pull yourself back up. Always pull yourself back up. There was never a time, you may say, this is it. You may say, I don't know what I'm doing. You may hop on a train and go back from one coast to the next. But you never retire. You never resign yourself. It's never fatalistic. What is that in your character that keeps going, regardless? Even after the worst binger, or even after the worst whatever's happening in life. What is it that keeps you going?
I don't really know. The thing I do know as an analogy is after drinking all night and I have to go to rehearsal at 10 o'clock, I have to somehow pull myself together. I have to be there and I have to perform. I may smell bad, but they know how to deal with that as long as I'm doing my stuff. And there's obviously something way beyond that I never found out. I sort of suspect a few things, but I never, I turned away from any deeper scrutiny of that until it was too late and I was on the road to recovery and I didn't need to delve into that, I felt. Mm-hmm. Since then, I have to a degree, but that's 50 years ago.
Do you have is there a voice do you have a voice that speaks to you when the house is perfectly quiet, that says, what's next? Or that pats you on the back?
Every now and then, I have a very deep wish to do a one more play. And I've got my wish. I'm doing the Christmas Carol. A mug. Marley was dead to begin with. So I don't know. I mean, it's still a work in progress.
I think there's at least one more in you, at least, beyond the Christmas Carol, although you're going to make a lot of people very happy.
Well, we'll see. Right. I haven't got the energy to do King Lear.
King Lear's sitting down. That's okay.
Yeah. He's falling down a lot, but...
All right, great. Well,
God, you guys are great. Wonderful.
We could easily go another hour, but I don't want to do that to you, and I don't want to do that to our audience.
Or my wife.
Or your wife, exactly.
Or the piano movers.
I was going to say, I'm glad the piano movers aren't here yet, or if they are, they're very quiet.
Yeah, no, they're not here yet.
Okay.
I don't think.
All right, nice and quiet. Well, we've gone over almost 20 minutes, and Mitch, I'm gonna call you up on the phone as soon as we hang up, and just talk to you on the phone really quick. It's a quick thank you, and to everybody else in our audience, thank you for sticking with us. Thank you we went a little bit long, but thank you for your questions and being involved. And Mitch, Ryan, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure getting to know you and listening to you and above and beyond. It's really, this is sort of a perk, and I'm absolutely thrilled.
Well, thank you.
So thank you, Mitch.
All right. I'm gonna check out.
All right. Well, I'm gonna hit the button so we can all check out together. So again, thank you guys. Check the website to see what's next, and I'll see you all soon. Okay. All right.